Rocky Horror Minute is rated R. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is also rated R. We're going to spend this time discussing the movie in gory detail, and along the road we will talk about some adult content and use some of our favorite swear words.
I got snacks on snacks.
Consider yourselves warned. Welcome to Rocky Horror Minute, the podcast where we break down the Rocky Horror Picture Show in excruciating detail, 1 minute at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Leandra.
And I'm your other host, Kelly.
And remember when we used to have a podcast? This one?
Yeah. We have been on an unplanned hiatus. But we're back now for however long this lasts.
I know we've said it before, and I'm sure we'll say it again, but we're back. We're back. There's no reason for you to think.
Aren't you? So
yeah.
We're inarguably back, at least for this episode. Enjoy it.
I promise that I'm not going to go out for cigarettes and not come back again.
I trusted you!
Did you, though?
No. So, Leandra, what do we do on this podcast? Wait, you already said. But it's been so long.
Well, on this episode, we're going to talk about minute 48. And Kelly, remind me what happens in that minute.
So, at the end of minute 47, Frank was approaching Rocky during the reprise of Make You a Man. And he had just said, I don't want. And so this continues with him finishing that line. He says, no dissension, just dynamic tension. Then he opens his mouth as if to chomp something, so pin in that. But right when he is about to sing the next line or chomp or whatever he's going to do, Janet pipes up from the back of the room and dancily sings that she says, I'm a muscle fan, before realizing that Brad is looking at her in horror. And everybody just kind of collectively decides to ignore that and continue. So Frank continues, in just 7 days I can make you a man. And then he brings Rocky over to him, like sort of in his arms. They spin around and then are standing next to each other, side by side, facing forward. And Frank says, dig it if you can. Does a little twisty move there, puts Rocky's arm in his, and then continues, in just 7 days I can make you. And at that point, we cut to Riff and Magenta pull a cord and open a giant curtain. The wedding march plays, and we see Frank's bridal suite, as it is described in the movie, is behind this lab, which is an interesting architectural choice. But so it is a dark room, painted a dark color, I think, or maybe it's just very poorly lit. The only real lighting we see are two big candelabras on either side of the giant canopy bed, which is a fire hazard that I'll also get to in a minute. There's a giant canopy bed, dark curtains, dark sheets, and a big monogrammed R and F pillows for Rocky and Frank. And of course, the most dominating thing in the room is this gigantic stained glass window behind the bed depicting Charles Atlas, not Charles Atlas.
Not Charles Atlas, no.
The Atlas of Greek mythology holding up the world. But it's a continuation of that Charles Atlas reference, which I think is really clever and great. And then, so Frank kind of looks knowingly at Rocky, and then they walk up to the bridal suite, face each other, and the curtains are just starting to close on them at the end of this minute.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Oh, and the Transylvanians are all yelling, Frank and Rocky, rah, 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 Frank and Rocky, rah, 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 while throwing confetti that they produced from God knows where.
I think you know where.
Okay, that's fair. I, of all people, should know. What do we
So
think of this minute?
it's a minute.
Yeah?
I I'm just happy that we're about to end the lab scene. This scene
Yeah.
has literally never ended for us. I know we're not quite out yet, but hopefully soon.
Lab scene has always, ever since I was a kid, and certainly once I started performing Rocky, it drags for me so badly. And I know I've talked about it in previous minutes. This one is not so bad. This has some fun things going on. The minutes where Frank is just staring up at the color squirting thing and colors are flying everywhere for what seems like an hour, that is really tough for me.
That's totally fair. I guess before we jump into the meat of this minute, do you want to give just a quick refresher on the Atlas myth of Greek mythology? Because there are people that might not know it.
That is fair. So, besides the fact that he was holding up the earth on his shoulders, I actually don't remember. He was Titan or something, right?
I'm pretty sure he was a Titan. It was his punishment to hold up the world on his shoulders, and it was one of Hercules's Herculean tasks to go hold the world for Atlas for some
Yeah.
very short amount of time.
I remembered it was a punishment, but what was he being punished for? Do you know or
I th
remember?
I'm pretty sure that it was the Titans were getting punished for the initial shit that they did when they tried to take over.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know why just that one got that relatively important punishment, but I guess that makes sense. I should know this. I literally just read a book about Greek mythology. For some reason, I don't think they covered this though.
I remember it from there was a big orange book of Greek mythology with really pretty pictures.
The Delaris book of Greek mythology.
It is,
That was
yeah.
my favorite when I was a child. And Norse mythology is really good too.
And surprisingly, we're both gay.
who who could have predicted this?
Although, as a side
But
note,
yeah.
that book it doesn't have an orange cover anymore. It has a black cover, and I really hate that for reasons I don't
Oh,
understand.
gross. I have a copy that I purchased several years ago that is the old cover.
And if you have no idea what we're talking about, you should read a book.
I thought you were gonna say you should try gay.
Have you considered being gay? Ask
Yeah.
ask
But
your
yeah,
boyfriend if gay is right for you.
anyways, that's him. I think it is he's obviously, considered strong, so I guess that's why Charles Atlas named himself that, question mark.
I believe you. I don't think that that was
It's
his given
a
name.
no, it was not. So because of that, I think that I always assumed that it was a reference to the Titan because he was strong enough to hold up the world, but I could be totally wrong.
No, I think that that's right, especially since, like, at least Richard O'Brien or whomstever has also kind of made that correlation because
Yeah.
we of course see this very beautiful backlit stained glass window in an otherwise windowless lab.
Do you have any details on that window, Leandra? Was it commissioned for this movie? Was it just something they found?
I don't have any specifics on it, but I do know that it certainly looks like something that they added in, special for this.
Yeah.
I I double checked, and the lab scene was filmed at Hammer Films Bray Studio near Maidenhead in Berkshire. Like all of the other kind of interior
Yeah. It's the
scenes.
same room the pool was filmed in, as
Yeah,
we talked about before. But yeah, so I don't know.
but I
It could
don't
just
think
be
Tiffany did
plastic
this.
too. No. I mean, yeah, this could just be a plastic prop or something. If so, they did a really nice job because it looks great.
It really does. I remember many years ago I was on a cast that had like a poster board of the Charles Atlas stained glass, and they had a person on tech just hold it for this bit. And I enjoyed that. I thought that it was very fun.
I love that.
Yeah, if we had somebody that I thought could make it and make it look good, I would strongly encourage us as the DC cast to bring that back because it's just another kind of fun thing for people on running crew to do to participate.
I have noticed that people on running crew love holding up signs.
They do.
I don't get it because I hate like having to stand and hold something up and have my arms hurt. But I've noticed that people will fight over getting to hold up the signs in the cemetery or the enter at your own risk sign and stuff.
I mean, holding things, carrying things, the only thing that I really enjoy carrying is the weight of the show on my shoulders.
So.
So,
So I don't have a ton to say about this, Matt.
okay.
So first of all, I've always been like, what was Frank about to do before Janet interrupted him? Because the next line of the song ends up just being, in just 7 days I can make you a man. But he is not about to say the word in. He opens his mouth like as wide as it can go and takes a huge breath. So let's speculate.
I would like to think that he's about to sing what Janet has jumped in and is singing.
Oh, I like that.
Like he's gonna get this kind of jazzy, vampy thing to hammer this home, and instead Janet takes it.
This is a favorite Janet moment of mine because it's so attention hoary in the best way to just jump in with a song and the way that everyone else just kind of reacts like anyway and just does not acknowledge her. Besides Brad, I I love it. I think that it's a really, really humorous moment in the film. And we can kind of see, I feel like at this time, Janet has been like almost completely won over by Frank and, Rocky and all that.
I really enjoy just looking at the Transylvanians in this moment because for the most part, they look either bored or just like perhaps high, like in a daze about what's going on. And then you see Lindsay Ingram. She has a bit of a delayed reaction to turning to Janet to see what's going on, but there's just this slight shade of, oh no, this bitch did not just start singing. And several seconds later, that sentiment is mirrored by Patricia Quinn, who very, very dramatically just rolls her eyes.
Yeah.
But everybody else, they're just like, that's a cool thing that just happened.
We all know somebody like Janet who will call the attention of the moment back to herself, and everybody just kind of does their best to ignore her. Some of them might be on the call with me right now.
I was about to make that joke. I was going to say something like, and some of them are podcasters, like Kelly.
Yeah, I realized after I said that you were going to make that joke, because that's really much more of a me thing than you, so I was like, well, I'll just beat her to the punch then. Which is classic Kelly.
Oh, Kelly.
Oh, Kelly. So that's my only really major thing. As I mentioned, I noticed what a terrible fire hazard those curtains being so close to actual flame candelabras would be. And it's kind of a miracle that, not to spoil future minutes, but in a kerfuffle that's going to happen in that bedroom very shortly, it's kind of a miracle that a fire did not come to pass, but it did not somehow. And the idea of off of that, I always thought it was a really funny visual gag that this kind of dark, moody Victorian bedroom was right off of like a clinical looking science lab.
I'm just kind of trying to imagine if I were Brad and Janet and I've stumbled upon a fuck party and I don't know that it's that sort of party exactly, but I'm now in this lab and then I'm clearly one of the only people who had no idea that there was a bed on stage behind curtains. And it's just very, very insane to me that they put so much effort into this room that you only see a couple of times. But I'm happy they did.
Yeah, it's a really fun room. I honestly wish that we had gotten to see a little bit more of it and spent a little more time there because I think it's one of the more fun little sets that they have.
There are some truly beautiful pictures of the room inside of the Mick Rock book. They use the space for some promo photos, and if you have the DVD, not that people use DVDs anymore, but if you have the DVD that has the two DVDs, the inside sleeve, I guess, you can see some of the detail because they used a Mick Rock picture from this room. But regardless, next time I go to your house for a party, I expect you to have a surprise bedroom just like right off the kitchen.
You know damn well that that would not be your kind of party.
I know. It's an ongoing thought experiment where we sometimes go, I wonder what would happen if Leandra was at an orgy, and the answer is Leandra would leave.
That's true, or at least play cards and try really hard to not look
Yeah.
around her.
I'd be very politely not looking at anybody. Kelly, on the other hand, she's right in her element.
Yeah, I would.
Right in
I
lots of
would
things, really.
slide right in there.
Stealing a base, but you lose the base.
Exactly.
Did you have any other things that you wanted to bring up?
Why do, or well, really just Rocky? Why does he walk like that?
I have a question in my notes that is, what do you think the direction was for Peter Hinwood at this moment? What do you think the director said to him that made him never pick up his feet?
Yeah, it's like a one of those wind up toys, that kind
Yeah.
of like jitters along with like one used foot. The only thing, so I'm assuming that what happened here is he was able to take longer and generally like more normal strides than Tim Curry because, well, but he's walking around fine in those heels otherwise. So I don't know. None of it makes any
I
sense. I think it would have been. I mean, I guess I guess Rocky would have been too in control if they did this, but I think it would have been fun for him to just kind of scoop Frank up and take him over there over the threshold. But
if it
so I
were
have no
you,
idea
I
what
feel
to
like you would have just screamed trust fall and
True. I should do that sometime if we ever get Brad into Rocky or something.
oh my God, he'd love it so much.
That'd be
And
funny.
Brad, when you listen to this, know that it's happening. Just accept
For
your fate.
listeners, Brad is my boyfriend, and I like to sometimes surprise him with a trust fall just to make sure I can really trust him.
Sometimes she fights the trust fall.
Yeah.
Sometimes she does it at the top of stairs.
I stopped that one. Uh, but yes.
Just kind of going back to what the Transylvanians are doing at this point, they're they're watching the scene unfold and they're mostly bored, but the only person who's really bopping along is Janet. If you look at individual Transylvanians, though, Rufus looks a bit miffed and he's got his arms crossed and he's far away from most of the other Transylvanians. He's up near the entrance to the freezer. And you also get a nice shot of the variety of Transylvanian shoes in this bit, and I think that Anthony Milner is the one that's just hanging out leaning on the pommel horse. I don't know why they are stuck kind of in timeout from all of the other Transylvanians, but both of them are kind of like, well, I'd like to participate a little bit more. Although, as I can also appreciate that maybe they just wanted it to seem like a more 3D blocking since, this isn't actually a stage play anymore. So they went, you know what? Let's spread some people out. And going over to Janet's stolen solo, what do you think Brad's thoughts are at that moment?
I think it's a continuation of like when she's clapping during the monster reveal and everything, and clapping during the lab speech, and he is appalled at her. So I think he's mostly, but he's also probably a little hurt because while Barry Bostwick is truly beautiful in this movie, and I'm not saying that he was like a one of my first fictional crushes for sure, Brad in this movie, but he's not really muscular necessarily. He's got more of like a swimmer's body, I would say.
That's
Do you
fair.
agree with that?
He's got a yoga bod.
Yeah, he at least doesn't look like a bodybuilder the way that Peter Hinwood does. So
Sure.
I think that, and that's why she looks at him when she says, "I don't like men with too many muscles," where she's clearly trying to placate him and stuff. So I would imagine that it would hurt his feelings a little bit, and then also not only that, but she literally just said she didn't like men with too many muscles. So there's the deception on top of everything.
I feel like even if I was totally cool with my girlfriend, oh sorry, fiance being into muscles now and all of that, I would be mortified that she interrupted a clearly like choreographed musical number to interject what she assumed was the next line. Like I'd just be like, "Oh my God, stop it. You're embarrassing me."
Now, if Brad happens to have a cup fetish, this would be a dream come true for him.
Yes. Do we think that that is likely?
I do not think it is the intent of the movie. Knowing people like Brad in real life, I would say it's fairly likely, yeah. Let me put it this way: every man I've ever known who had a cuck fetish had some similarities with Brad.
Brad in the movie, not Brad, your boyfriend.
No, not Brad, my boyfriend. He would have left this place so long ago. He certainly wouldn't care what I was doing. He'd be like, "You have fun. I'm gonna go home and play Destiny."
A couple of other things that I wanted to talk about in this movie in this minute. Um, did you notice that Brad's lab coat, it looks like the lapels are popped, like he's a jock or something?
I did not notice that. That's
It is
interesting, though.
it's very strange. I don't think that it was handed to him like that. So in my brain, I've decided that Barry Bostwick was like, I'm gonna make this look good, and he just like pops his collar.
Well, and that's a prep school boy thing, right?
Is it prep or jock?
No.
I don't know. It's
Well, I
not a
mean,
thing
same
that I
thing, but I'm
particularly.
just saying that could be the joke because Brad definitely seems like he went to a prep school. You know,
Oh, that's fair.
I have no idea though. I actually did not notice ever. So I will take a look.
Also, reminder yet again that Peter Hinwood isn't wearing a prosthetic belly button cover. If the internet has told you that, they are lying. I don't know why. This is something that people truly believe. Like, just no. That's just
Yeah.
what his belly button looks like. I know it looks a little weird, but they don't have the money in the budget for that.
Nor would it make sense. I get where they're coming from, but yeah, no. He's just buff, and
Yeah.
that's really all there is to it.
And during my rewatch of this minute, like on the fifth one today, I noticed that at the very least, Rufus and Lindsay Transylvanians are singing along during Frank's bit of the song. Like, yes, there's definitely Transylvanian backing vocals on some of it, and I saw that there are Transylvanians singing on the right parts, but at least those two are also singing on Frank's solo, or I guess lip syncing. And I saw this once many years on a kid's sing along VHS, and that was really the most memorable part of that to me. And when I saw this, I started cackling because somebody's like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna sing it anyway." And after that point, we pan over to the statues, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned this before, but I love that the statues have their fingernails and their toenails and their lips painted red.
Yes.
And Columbia is just moping on the motorcycle here. She doesn't leave or anything
Oh.
after her boyfriend is murdered. She stays on the motorcycle and she's just like, I'm sad here and I was put here by Eddie, so I guess I'll stay here just in case he gets back, I guess.
Yes, I love how sullen she looks. It is very, very funny.
It's really good. So otherwise, next bit that I wanted to throw out there. This is one of my favorite moments for Riff and Magenta. It's opening the curtains because they do it slower than you'd think that they would, and at least as Riff, I still have the Frank lab gown on my arm because I don't have any place to put it. So I use it to mime the curtain rope and I don't know, it's one of those little pieces that I go, oh, yay, I get to do this.
Yeah, that's good. As
And then,
Magenta, I always just have to pretend there's a rope.
yeah,
If only she had a rope.
I mean, when we used to have Transylvanians still on stage for all of Lab Scene, which you can do, I don't have major problems with it. It just, there's,
It seems like a lot.
yeah, and we've got a fairly small stage, so it just ends up being extra bodies clogging up everything.
Yeah,
But
we've probably talked about this before, but for listeners who don't know, we don't have a stage on the DC cast. We're just in a normal movie theater, just performing in the spot between the front row and the movie screen. There are theaters that have an actual stage, which is amazing, but we're not one of them,
not
so
us.
it can get yeah, it can get very tight.
But you can potentially have a couple of Transylvanians, particularly ones with like longer hair, turn around and you can use their ponytails as the curtain rope. Like
That's
that
really
is
funny.
fun, but really contingent on having Transylvanians, specifically ones with longer hair. Otherwise, what?
That is true.
You had mentioned the Transylvanians are saying Frank and Rocky rah rah rah, and I certainly believe that that is absolutely what they're saying. I can't hear that though. The only thing that I ever hear is Rocky Rocky rah rah rah, which doesn't make sense at all. I get that, but no matter how many times I listen to that, the only thing I can hear is Rocky Rocky rah rah rah.
Yeah,
So
I can see how you can hear that, but I'm like 100% being Frank and Rocky.
I mean, not only does that make more sense, but every single script has it as that, and not a single person has ever gone, yeah, no, it's definitely Rocky, Rocky, rah, 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 when we've talked about this with people. So I I assume that this is just a thing that I can't hear.
Makes sense.
And part of the problem with this is if you're looking at the Transylvanians, none of them are actually moving their lips at this point. So so you can't even tell what they're lip syncing because they're not. They're simply not. I
No, they just decided not to. But they were damn well gonna sing along with Frank, though.
It's true. They were like, well, now I don't want to. I love the little boxes of confetti. I blame both Sue Blaine and Sue Mary for for having these just appear out of nowhere.
Yep, they are both to blame. Uh, is confetti? I've never seen it, but is it ever put in prop bags for this?
Yes, there are casts that do that.
I believe I can guess why our cast and no other cast I've ever visited does it.
Yes, it is a bad idea, in my
Yeah,
opinion. If your
yeah.
cast does this and you feel very strongly, then let me know in a 5-star review on
I
Apple
mean,
Podcasts.
more power to you. It just seems like a huge pain in the ass to clean up. So I think our theater would be like, no. Um,
I mean, it's right there
but
with
then again,
rice.
I was about to say I've been to casts that dip rice, so you would think confetti would be par for the course at that point. But
Yeah, I am very happy that we don't. It
yeah,
is it is something that we used to kind of warn people not to throw because there was at one point a cast in the area that would, and we didn't want people to get confused.
you and I were recently at an event where there was confetti, and when I was there, I think was wow, confetti is a stupid idea. I hadn't seen it in a probably since I was a kid, and I was just looking around like again, it's like more power to the people hosting this. Like if they're fine with cleaning this up, but this shall never be at my home ever.
Yeah, I I definitely think that that was more because there were children at this specific event and
Yes,
they
but
were
it does not matter. I don't care if my child is dying of cancer.
the
In
end.
general, I don't care, but I also am not letting them throw confetti. But also, like, why does it even, like, why was it even invented? The idea of coming up with something that is one moment of, like, woohoo, for then just, like, you've got to clean up confetti.
Well, I think it's pretty.
Okay, years ago, you and I both saw a production of Camelot at a local theater company
I did hate that,
where
yeah.
multiple times
Professional.
throughout the production, yeah, a very large professional theater company in the area, multiple times throughout this production, they would do something like have a bunch of flower petals fall onto the stage for effect, and then have those flower petals be there for the entire rest of the act. And it was so not worth it for that momentary ambiance.
And then at intermission, you saw them moving the flowers off, and you're like, finally, they're gone. And then they open the curtain back up again, and it's 3 inches of fake leaves on the ground.
It was autumn. It was
And
cute.
they dropped more.
Yeah.
It was hilarious because they didn't even bother moving the stuff out for other scenes after that. So you had like really intense indoor scenes where people are
Yeah.
singing about like death or murder or whatever, and you just see them shuffling through fake leaves,
Like
like
ankle
inches of
deep.
them.
Yeah. So, in a similar vein, confetti just does not seem like I understand that it's like fun and pretty, but like after that, it's like wow, that was not worth it. Hey,
So,
I,
have you ever
if I
been
don't have to
to
clean it up, Then I
I
just
mean,
get the
fair.
benefits and nothing else. Yeah.
Have you ever been to a wedding where instead of throwing rice, they throw birdseed?
No, I've never been to a wedding where they threw anything. Actually,
Ah,
sometimes bubbles.
side note, I just got my niece a bubble gun. I'm
Mm,
the worst aunt.
no, you're the best aunt. You're the worst sister.
Oh, that is fair. That is a good kind of delineation.
Yeah.
One other note before we get on to callbacks. Does Brad get to keep the sacks?
I was wondering about that too. I love that before we started doing this podcast, I never thought about A, who plays that second sax solo in Hot Patootie, and B, like, where the hell is the saxophone now?
I mean, if this were a video game, it would just stay in Brad's inventory, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, perhaps that's where it is. It's another Seuss to Mary moment.
For sure. But those are all of my notes. All right. So, on to callbacks. What callbacks do you have?
I have literally just one,
Oh,
which is some variation before Janet interrupts Frank. Variation of tell us how you really feel, slut, or take it away, slut. Or I've heard a few of these. That's literally the only one I have though.
okay. I've always heard it as "take it away, slut," which I think is fun, but maybe not the best callback in the world.
No.
But before that, kind of in the vein of talking about movements on the screen, when Frank is doing his little step toward Rocky, you can go step kick, or step seizure, because he's kicking his butt just in between steps, which is cool. Maybe not the fastest way to get someplace, but definitely fun to watch. After Janet has her "I'm a muscle fan," I've I've gone to shows where the entire cast will turn around and scream "horror" at Janet.
Wow.
I, it's not a thing we do. It's not a thing I like, but it is a thing I've seen. I don't really encourage it. It's just very aggressive.
Yeah.
Um, Side note though, this is an important time. This is a good time, I guess, to bring up your specific Janet necklace, which I love.
Yeah, well, you should. This is a shamelessly stolen from Leandra joke, but so as listeners should know by now, Janet wears a gold necklace that says Janet. Leandra one day sent me a link to an Etsy shop and said, "Finally, a screen accurate Janet necklace." And I opened it, and it's a gold necklace, kind of in the style of those name necklaces, although much bigger, and it says "cock juggling thunder cunt." So I bought that on the spot for my Janet costume. It is perfect.
It looks
So
really good.
yeah, I'll post a picture of it if I think about it. It is very funny. And that's exactly the kind of deviation from screen accuracy I love in
Oh
a
yeah.
costume. It's such a perfect way to reference that necklace. I didn't have one before because I didn't really see much point. It doesn't read, even in the first couple of rows, the audience can't really see it. This one they can see because it's gigantic, but it's also the kind of thing where people would be like, "Oh, what does that say?" And when they get close enough, they really find it amusing. So,
Yeah,
love that Janet necklace. Thank you, Leandra, for giving me the gift of that joke.
of course. Next up is one of my favorite stupid callbacks. It's what do you do with a wedgie? And then Frankenfurter says, "Dig it if you can." And similarly to the step kick or the step seizure, uh, Frankenfurter forcibly loops Rocky's arm with his, and the audience goes, "Arm goes here."
Yeah.
When you hear the wedding march, because it's aggressive electric guitar, the callback is Who Invited Jimi Hendrix?
Pretty funny.
And then when you see Atlas with the globe on his shoulders, I've heard multiple people go, he's got the whole world on his back.
Oh, you know what? I have heard that.
Yeah. There are some fun ones in this one, but despite it being a minute that we didn't have much to talk about, I know that we've talked about it quite a lot.
Yeah, I should have known that we would have plenty of tangential interludes, so.
Before we wrap up, I did want to just call out all of the people who have sent us letters and notes and surprisingly few dick pics, encouraging us to keep going. We really enjoy hearing that you're listening to our podcast, that you have questions, that you disagree, that you want us to say something else about another topic. It's really, anytime we get fan mail, it makes our day, sometimes our week or month.
It's true. And Leandra, if someone wants to send us fan mail, how could they do that?
All you have to do is fake an orgasm. No, wait, that's the wrong one. You send it to rockyhorrorminute@gmail.com.
Right. And you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Rocky Horror Minute or Twitter at Rocky Horror Min. We're always happy to talk to you guys, so feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I guess you could say that Kelly is always wide open.
I am, yeah.
But let's go ahead and wrap this one up the same way we always do, with us speaking at the same time. Now, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out.
To the late night.
That's nice.
Double feature.